students, welcome back again. In the last two lectures, we studied about discrete Fourier transform and fast Fourier transform. These two were important concepts before we discuss the periodograms. So that's why I invested 2 lectures on discrete Fourier transform and fast Fourier transform. So in this lecture, we will discuss about periodogram. I think many of you have already heard this term and some of you may also be using this in your projects. But today we will learn why periodogram is important and why we compute periodogram. In the context of all the theoretical analysis we have done in terms of autocovariance function or power spectral density or energy spectral density. So as I have been saying repeatedly that we are dealing in reality with the discrete data. So we are not dealing with the continuous form of data. So for example, if you have any measurements or of any function like this, what we are having is the data at discrete point of time. If it is a time series, for example, you have initially data at t0, then at t1, then at t2, at t3, so on and so forth. For example, if you have total n data points, so you will go from time instance from t equal to 0 to tn minus 1. So you have your measurements. So these are time samples, different samples here, and they are equally spaced. So whatever data we take in digital format, they are equally spaced. And these are the values on the y-axis. These are the values of your measurements. So I am writing here again just for your understanding that we have data at discrete instances. We do not have continuous data. T0, T1, T2, T3, and corresponding to this you have values of your measurements x0, x1, x2, x3, so on and so forth. And these are the indices like 0, 1, 2, 3. So these are your number of data points of your sequence. So that is going from 0, 1, 2, 3 till n minus 1. So you can assume them like when we were discussing discrete Fourier transform, the summation over k or n. So these are these samples, those indices. So for a discrete data set, we can write our autocovariance function, which is an ensemble autocovariance function determined for a stochastic stationary process, expectation of x. So please don't get confused with this term and this. So this is gamma here and this is x here, small x in small cases. So expectation of x at indices m and n. So what we can write it that the autocovariance function just depends upon, as we know from our earlier knowledge or our earlier discussion, that it depends only on the separation of between the two time instances or separation between the two samples. So that is m minus n, or you can write it n minus m. Other way of writing which you would have seen like x, if the function is xt, then we can the expectation is xt plus tau, that you have seen. So this is another form of writing the same thing. Gamma x L is equal to expectation of xn multiplied with xn plus L. So this L is again separation. So I can write this L as n minus m or m minus n. So this is your autocovariance function computed for a stochastic stationary process where you have different realization and ensemble of your data points, not only a single realization, there are multiple realization. However, in practice, what you have is a single realization more often than not. Like we have earthquake record from one earthquake at single station, only one record. It is very difficult to have, or almost impossible to have, multiple records from the same earthquake at the same location. So what we have is only one record at one station from one earthquake. So only single realization. So there can be similar examples in climate data also, that often you have single realization. You don't have ensembles. You don't have multiple realization. But still we want to compute power spectral density or energy density. So how do we do this? Or we want to compute the autocovariance function, or we want to compute the autocorrelation function. So how do we do this? So you have to work with a single data sequence. You have only one realization, and you want to estimate your statistical measures like autocovariance function or autocorrelation function. So in this case, the sample estimate we call, because you have only one sample, so the sample estimate of your autocovariance function, similarly you can write for your autocorrelation function also. So your sample estimate of your autocovariance function from a single realization can be estimated, or you estimate it by this. So I am writing it gamma hat or cap xl 1 by n summation over n equal to 0 to n minus l minus 1, where L is the separation between the two time points or the samples, xn plus L for L greater than 0 when L is positive. So it cannot be more than n for sure, because n is total number of data points in your sequence. And similarly for the negative values of L, we write it gamma hat x minus L, the same thing just for negative values of L. So as I said before, L is the separation between the two indices. So this is your sample estimate of autocovariance function from one realization. Now the assumption is, like when you want to estimate from one realization your autocovariance function for the entire, and you want to generalize it for the entire ensemble, given that you don't have the entire ensemble or you don't have multiple realizations, but you still want to compute from one single realization. So in this case, what we invoke is the ergodic assumption. So ergodic assumption, as you have seen before, is that the time average or the statistical properties measures in the time domain are equal to the average in time is equal to ensemble average. So your statistical properties are same in the time domain and over the ensembles or over the realizations. So you invoke a ergodic assumption. So you assume that your single realization gamma hat is equal to gamma xx, the true autocovariance function over all the ensembles. But we have to check whether it is a good estimate of true autocovariance function. This is coming from a single realization. Now we will see that your gamma x computed from a single realization is a biased estimate of the true autocovariance function if you would have had the entire ensemble or all multiple realizations. So let's see, is it giving the true autocovariance function? So this is for your one realization. You have one data sequence. So you want to compute the true autocovariance function. So what we can do, that let's take the expectation over both sides, on both sides. So if I take expectation here, so it will be expectation of gamma hat L 1 by n here. So I am just taking this, the first one, 1 by n is there. Here expectation will go inside. Expectation of x n plus L, L is the separation again, x n. So n and L, all these are indices. Keep in mind, L is the separation between two indices. So n is again your number of sample points, indices related with your samples, n equal to 0, n equal to 1, 2, 3, as I saw in the first slide. So this thing you see from the first slide, the definition of our autocovariance function for a stochastic stationary process is, this is our gamma xx. This is the true covariance, autocovariance. So 1 by n summation over n equal to 0, n minus L minus 1. So that is how your summation will go. So this is your true autocovariance. So how many terms will be there in this summation total? there will be n minus L terms. You can see, you assume a value of n, for example 10, and assume a value of 2 or 1 or 3, you will see that the total number of terms will be n minus L. So it will be n minus L multiplied by with this sum will result in n minus L multiplied, because there will be n minus L terms, total terms. So this n minus L will be multiplied with gamma xx, 1 by n is there. So now I can take this 1 by n inside. So what I can write, expectation of gamma hat L as 1 minus mod of L divided by n, because L can be negative and positive both, gamma xx. So that means this thing, your gamma hat, or what we are calling the estimate of your sample estimate of your autocovariance function from a single realization, will not be equal to the true autocovariance function. You can see it here for a given L and n. However, if your n tends to infinity, if your number of data points, your number of samples are very large in comparison to your L, you can see this will become, total term will become 0. Then in that case here, this expectation of your gamma hat can become the true autocovariance function. So this is a condition that your sample length should be fairly large, so in comparison to your L, so that then you can say that this sample autocovariance from a single estimate, from a single realization, will be my true autocovariance function. So this is the condition, right? Now, spectral density, because we know that if we know the autocovariance function, then we can compute energy spectral density. If we have autocorrelation function, then we can compute the normalized power spectral density. So I am using a general term, because if you know the autocovariance, then you can compute the autocorrelation also, just that it is divided by or normalized by your total variance, right? So that's why I am using a generalized term, spectral density, but more often it is used in terms of power spectral density. So this you have to keep in mind. So this is our sample estimate of autocovariance function. Similarly, you could have written a sample estimate of autocorrelation function also. So from autocovariance function or from autocorrelation function, we can compute spectral density, right? So this spectral, this autocovariance function, sample estimate of a autocovariance function, can become your true autocovariance function only when n is equal to your sample length or number of samples are fairly large. So now let's define, because you are still working, keep in mind, you are still working with a single realization, that is important. So now from a single realization, you want to compute power spectral density, right, for the stochastic stationary process, and you are invoking again the assumption of ergodicity, that your time domain averages or your time domain statistical properties will be equal to ensemble average or ensemble statistical properties over the entire range of realizations. So let's define, how do we write spectral density or energy spectral density, what we call as the Fourier transform of autocovariance function. This we have seen in first couple of lectures. So this is from a single realization, so I am calling it sample estimate. So that is gamma x hat from a single m, because m is the separation again. You know that autocovariance function is only function of the separation between your time instances or between your samples. It's not function of individual time values or individual sample values. It's just the function for a stochastic, for a stationary process, it is just a function of m or L in the previous case, the separation between two time steps or two time instances or two sample instances, like between 2 to 5, next it will be 5 to 7, 7 to 9 or something like this. So it's just the function of the separation between two time instances. So m is the separation between two samples. Okay, so this is not itself this indicating index of samples. Gamma x, this is your hat. So, this is for single realization. We said that it is our spectral density can be written as Fourier transform of your autocovariance function. So, this is Fourier definition of Fourier transform e to the power minus j omega m, where omega is again 2 pi n divided by capital N. M is the separation between the samples. So, m can be negative and positive. So, that is why it is running from minus n minus 1 to n 1 to positive n minus 1. This summation is running. So, this what we call, what we compute from a single realization, we call it as periodogram also. This is your periodogram when you compute your spectral density from a single realization. That is your periodogram. So, the definition of periodogram is this. So, you have seen that this single or sample estimate of autocovariance function can be written as, from your definition here, you see here this definition, we can write it 1 by n, because we have replaced this separation L by m here because of a reason, because we want to use L for something else later. But do not get confused, it is always a function of the separation. So, in this case separation is m, sometime it will be m. So, it is the matter of convention how you write it. So, sometime it will be L. So, the separation is m. So, the outside one is the Fourier summation again from m equal to minus n minus 1 to n minus 1. The inside one is the value of gamma hat from here, 1 by n summation over k equal to 0 to n minus m minus 1 x k plus m. So, it is just the separation between the two indices, right, e to the power minus j omega m. So, this is how, if you are given a sample, you will compute the periodogram, that you will compute the sample estimate of autocovariance function and then take the Fourier transform of this. That is how you will compute your periodogram. But there is another way also. So, that another alternate way is like this. If I define, if your sample, input sample is xk, where k is running from 0 equal to n minus 1, it can be xn also. So, as I discussed in the previous, that these are just indices. So, you have a sample x sampled at n points, capital N points from 0 to n minus 1. So, I am writing those indices as k. So, you can define the discrete Fourier transform for this as, so I am in discrete Fourier transform, there is one more term 1 by n. I am ignoring this, I am assuming that it is in the inverse DFT. So, summation over k equal to 0 to n minus 1 xk, your input data sequence again e to the power minus j omega k, where omega is 2 pi n divided by n. So, this is here n. So, n can again range from n equal to 0 to n minus 1. These are frequency components n, right. You will have n DFT points. So, that is why it is sometimes called n DFT also. Keep this in mind. Now, I defined a new term like 1 by n, I multiplied by 1 by n and xn omega conjugate. So, this term I multiply by 1 by n and by a complex conjugate of this. So, I am writing it here. So, what it will become 1 by n, this one, because this is the DFT, forward DFT of this, summation over k equal to 0 n minus 1 x k e to the power minus j omega k. I am writing its complex conjugate like this, x l e to the power minus j omega l star. So, this is representing complex conjugate. I just used a different indices L equal to 0 to n minus 1, right. So, these are L is just representing indices, that is why I did not use L before, I used M for the separation. So, you can take the summation together 1 by n, summation over k equal to 0 n minus 1, summation over L equal to 0 to n minus 1, xk and xl are real parts. Now, you see e to the power minus j omega k, this is e to the power minus j omega k, here is also e to the power minus j omega l. So, it is complex conjugate, so it will become plus, right, e to the power plus j omega l. So, this minus and minus will make it plus. So, that is why we have taken minus outside. If you take minus inside, this k term will become negative as it should be, but this term should become positive because it is complex conjugate, so it will be e to the power minus j omega plus kl, right? So we can write it like this. Now see, there is an interesting similarity. So this computation, we wrote it here like this: summation over k equal to 0 n minus 1, L over summation over L equal to 0 to n minus 1, x k x L e to the power minus j omega k minus L. So this is how we wrote it in the previous slide. So I have just written it again here. Now see the similarity of this one, this part which has come after rearrangement of the terms, with your I n omega, because you are writing I n omega from your definition as the Fourier transform of your autocovariance function, right? This is your sample autocovariance function, and this outer summation is for the Fourier transform, for the discrete Fourier transform. So the inside summation is for autocovariance, the outside summation is for the discrete Fourier transform. So you see this here, xk multiplied with xk plus m, here xk and xl, and here is the m in the exponential term, m, which is just the separation between this indices and this indices, right? The difference between the two time intervals or the two time instances or the two samples. Here it is also the same difference. You have a sample k, you have a sample at k, you have a sample at l, and this is the difference, k minus l. So k minus l is nothing but, or l minus k is nothing but is your m. So they are similar. So I could write k plus m as l also, right? Or k minus m as l also. So this integration and this integration becomes quite similar. Okay. So that means 1 by n x n omega mod square will, because this is essentially the amplitude or magnitude mod square, right? X plus iy multiplied by x minus iy, which is x square plus y square, right? This is the square of your mod. So that is why it is x n omega mod square is also equal to your periodogram. So this is an alternate way, that either you take the sample autocovariance function and then take the discrete Fourier transform, or you take directly the discrete Fourier transform of your input sequence, your data sequence, take the amplitude of it, absolute value, that means mod of this, and square it. So this is also your periodogram, right? So there are two ways of computing periodogram. One is from the sample autocovariance, the other is just by taking the DFT, forward DFT of your endpoint DFT of your input sequence, and taking magnitude of that and squaring it and just plot it against frequency. That is your periodogram, right? Now the question is, because these are sample estimates, these are, you are computing them from a single realization. So these are your sample estimates. Does your periodogram represent the true spectral density, the true power spectral density, if you are computing autocorrelation function from your single realization and computing then the Fourier DFT of that? Does it represent the true spectral density? So again, I will take expectations on both sides. Expectation I, and this would be smaller n omega, summation over m equal to minus n minus 1 to n minus 1, because m can be positive and negative, expectation of gamma x m e to the power minus j omega m. So this is for the Fourier transform, this summation. So this expectation, we know the expectation of this from our previous analysis, 1 minus m mod of m divided by n. There it was mod of L. So I just replace this separation between two time instances by m. So I can write it 1 minus mod of m divided by n gamma x x m. So this is your true autocovariance function, right? So I will just replace it here. So I can write expectation of I n omega summation over m equal to minus n minus 1 to m equal to n minus 1, 1 minus mod of m divided by n gamma x x m, this part e to the power minus j omega m. So this is m. So this is your Fourier transform summation. Now you see that your sample estimate of I n omega is not again, or periodogram is not again representing your true spectral density. because they are not equal. It's not equal to Fourier transform or DFT of gamma x xm entirely. It is depending upon this term here. Otherwise, it would be equal if you wouldn't have this multiplied term, this multiplication term 1 minus mod of m divided by n. So, it is depending upon n and m, right. So, again it will converge to your true spectral density given your sample length is quite long in comparison to your m. So, if n tends to become infinity, then only this term will become 0. So, that the entire term will become 1, then only your expectation I n omega will become the DFT or Fourier transform of your true autocovariance function. Only when n is sufficiently large, then only you can write it as the fx omega. Either it can be energy spectral density, as I said in the previous class, you can call it power spectral density also if it is normalized by the total variance. So, again when n is your number of samples are sufficiently large, then only the periodogram is a good estimator of spectral density. So, this was about periodogram. So, you have been using periodogram. So, keep in mind these assumptions. So, I think last couple of lecture and this lecture would have provided you sufficient background in spectral density, like what you are working with, how you are computing periodogram, and then how you think that it is representing power, right. So, this part I will finish here, and after that I will discuss about time frequency representation together in next couple of lectures.